What's going on, college football fans? Welcome back to the First and Long College Football Show. It was a very eventful, action-packed Week 5. Our Georgia Bulldogs come up on the losing end, as well as the Nittany Lions. It was the LSU Tigers. Lots and lots of movement going to be going on in the top 25 headed into Week 6. We got a lot to unpack here. We're going to go through the big games first. We got Alabama, Georgia on the mind. Supposed to just be Georgia on my mind.
Yeah.
But
Alabama keeps finding a way in there.
They're always
rent-free in Georgia fans' minds, I can assure you.
As a Georgia fan, they're always on my mind.
Yep.
It's unfortunate that Georgia can't figure out a way to get over the hump, but Alabama wins the game 24-21. Ty Simpson started the game off just hot as all get out. Yep. I mean, and really on third down is what killed Georgia over and over again. I mean, we say that the third down stats are pretty astonishing for the Crimson Tide, obviously in the first half, and really throughout the game. But the average yards to go is what really, I mean, that's what
they set
prompted that to happen.
In third down, to be in third and short situations a lot and made it manageable. And Georgia didn't in a lot of cases.
Stayed out of the chains for the most part. And Georgia had some really, really painful penalties, penalties that really cost them. But honestly, man, I mean, you can point to a couple of things for the Georgia Bulldogs, I think, in this one. I mean, first of all, we've talked about it on this channel over and over and over again, guys. Take your points.
Yeah.
Take your points, especially in these big matchups where you've got all these athletes on the field. The defenses, I get it. Georgia's defense wasn't playing well in the beginning of the game, but they played well in the second half. Georgia's defense played well in the second half. Georgia's offense let them down and had opportunities. Taylor, the wide receiver, can't come up with a big reception. I mean, Gunnar Stockton's numbers look totally different today.
Right, if he catches
he catches that ball. I mean, let's just be honest. I thought Gunnar Stockton did just fine, considering the circumstances and playing a good opponent. But kicking the field goal, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to kick the field goal. Georgia is 3rd and 1. They run the ball. They don't get it, or it was 3rd and short. Maybe it was 3rd and 3, and it ends up 4th and 1. Georgia runs and jumps on the ball, like huddles up real quick, or no huddle, goes hurry up, and hikes the ball, does this play out to Cash Jones out on the right flat.
Haven't seen him all game.
Yeah, well, the only time we had seen him during the game was almost that exact play where we handed him the ball off. Right. Remember on that third and
second time.
Yeah,
he ended with 2 carries for -7 yards, and both plays were on 3rd down situations or 4th down situations, and were pivotal. And I don't understand going to him when running between the tackles was working. Right? Josh McCray didn't have a negative play all game long, and we're at 4th and 1 and decided to toss it out wide. If you're going to go for it, I feel like Georgia felt comfortable running the football in this game, and they should. They rushed for 250-something yards. In that situation, it's 4th down. You say, hey, we're running the football well, let's run it. Well, if you're going to do that, run it with what's been successful, not outside, run it in between the tackles. Well, that's to me the issue. It's not so much the call to go for it on 4th down, not on the one where they should have kicked the field goal late. I do think that on that play in particular, they should have kicked the field goal. But, even if you're in that mentality of going for it, make the right play call. I just didn't agree with who got the football and the way that they ran it.
Yeah, and then, I mean, just in a wider scope of things in the game, I mean, you're talking about a low-scoring ball game. 3 points is going to matter in even high-scoring games, man. I'm just sick and tired of seeing these teams. Look, and Alabama did it in this game. Alabama went for it on 4th down, didn't get it. Georgia takes over in great field position, and what do? They shit down the back of their leg.
Yep.
Did absolutely nothing with it. That's when Taylor drops the long pass on, what was it, 3rd and 9 or something like that.
Was a second down throw, but
second and 9, and then it put us in third and long, and behind schedule on offense. And we said it multiple times throughout the game. There was absolutely no excuse for Georgia to be behind schedule on offense when you're running the ball at that clip. How do you get behind schedule that many times on third down when you're running the ball? Let's figure it out. Let's look and see what Georgia averaged yards per carry, because I promise you it's going to be pretty solid. 6.9 yards per rush for the game.
Yeah, that's very solid.
And furthermore, to kind of accentuate what you were talking about on the goal line, you feel like you need to run one of those weird plays on third down with Cash Jones because you had no creativity on first or second down. You handed it off up the middle, and it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
There was no creativity, man. There was no Zachariah Branch had the one play towards the end of the game. I thought that was creative. Didn't get him involved enough in this game.
Right.
He's one of the best players on the field.
Yeah.
Why is he not more involved? I can promise you this. And look, this is why Georgia has struggled to get wide receivers to come to Georgia, guys. This is why. Because I promise you that if Zachariah Branch was on Alabama's team, he'd have had the ball in his hands a whole bunch today. I guarantee you he would have.
Yep.
Because they put the ball in their playmakers' hands.
He had 5 touches in this game. Zachariah Branch.
I love Georgia, and I do love Kirby and everything that he's done and everything that he continues to do, and I don't want him to go anywhere. But, dude, he is a lot like Nick Saban in the fact that if they don't have the best team on the field, you know what I'm saying? If they don't have the most talent on the field, they're not going to win, period. The few times, look, Nick Saban, that happened to him very few times where he stepped on the field and he didn't have the most talented team.
Right. It's different now.
It's different now. And I think you're going to see this more. And it's not just going to be Kirby. I don't think you're going to see undefeated teams like you used to. And so maybe that's a more grand, broader landscape of college football conversation. But Kirby is a talent acquisition expert, and he is very good at it. And that's why Georgia has been where they've been, and that's why they won their national championships back-to-back. He still sometimes leaves a little bit to be desired with these in-game decisions. You know, I don't know, man. It left a lot to be desired, in my opinion, offensively tonight. Just knowing the playmakers that we've got on the outside, I just didn't think we utilized them correctly. I didn't think we spread the field enough on Alabama, especially as good as we were running the ball up the middle. Why are we not trying to accentuate the boundaries and then pound up the middle? Boundaries, pound up the middle. Boundaries. It didn't seem like there was ever a rhyme or reason to what Georgia was doing on offense, other than when they did at times hard-hittingly run the football.
Right.
But other than that, that was the only calling card of this Georgia offense in the whole game.
It felt like they were starting to develop an identity on what they're going to be offensively. Being able to run the football, hit the play action, hit the deep balls. Just had a few big plays, and that's what games like this are going to boil down to, are a few big plays. I thought that the Georgia pass rush just wasn't there. It seemed non-existent. Couldn't get Ty Simpson on the ground. And we said in our preview, if he's standing upright, if you're not getting pressure on him, Alabama wins the game.
Kudos to the Alabama offensive line.
Right. Yeah.
They did, and Ty Simpson too, because he did. Dude, it's like he knew what was coming at times. Right. They said it at halftime in the halftime show, and I agree. It's almost like he knew what was coming.
Yeah.
I mean,
think he's a very heady player.
Yeah.
And it's just reading these defenses extremely well, knows what to do with the football. He knows when to call timeout. We saw that a couple of times. And I can't say enough about him and the way he's turned things around, because Alabama fans remember he came in with high praise to that program, and for 3 seasons, it was like the guy was on a milk carton. He was non-existent in the Alabama operations on offense, and it seemed like he was never a contender for a starting position. Going into this football season, I thought Alabama's got a pretty mid quarterback in Ty Simpson, and that's not the case. He's absolutely elite as far as game plan goes, and just knowing how to distribute the football and knowing where to go with it, and with a decent arm as well, and an undervalued skill set running the football as well.
Georgia is weird right now, man. This was pretty weird because the more I think about it, and we're going to unpack this as the week goes on and as the weeks go on, really, because this game was so influential. But Georgia runs the ball for 227 yards in this game, but they lose the time of possession battle by over 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and it was because when Georgia scored, it was off of explosive plays. Georgia does not sustain drives very well at all. And to run the ball for that many yards and not be able to move the sticks. I mean, Alabama 25 first downs and Georgia 17. You know, and Alabama, by the way, runs the ball for just over 100 yards, you know, and under 4 yards a carry, like maybe it was 3.1 yards per rush is what it was. For them to win the possession battle like that, you know, that something's off. Something's off on this Georgia offense, and I think it's kind of hard to put your finger on, especially when you run the ball at that clip. But the getting behind the chains, and another thing that stuck out to me a little bit in this game, Georgia 6 penalties for 68 yards, but Alabama has 4 penalties in this game, but only for 14 yards.
Yeah, I was just about to say Alabama much more disciplined than we've seen under Kalen DeBoer so far in his tenure at Alabama.
And proof, if you're going to commit a penalty, do it in the red zone.
100%. 100%.
Georgia committed all their penalties out in the middle of the field and felt the full wrath of the penalty yards, whereas Alabama made several of their penalties. Now, it did cost Alabama a touchdown on the one, you know, because they gave Georgia a first down in the red zone in that situation. I think it was defensive holding is what it was on Colby Young.
That's right, on the 4th down.
Yeah. So it cost them there, but if you really think about that, Alabama kind of bailed Georgia out in that red zone trip.
Yeah.
You know, but because Georgia, that was 4th down, by the way, people.
Right.
So, and Georgia didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia did not get it. So, I mean, this game could have went 1 million different ways.
And we knew that going into it.
Yeah, I mean, it really – but, I mean, I've never come out of a game and been like, 3 plays, Alabama wins by 3 touchdowns. 3 different plays, Georgia wins by 3 touchdowns.
Right.
Like –
Could have been that different.
And it ends up being a field goal game, you know. Wow. I kudos to Alabama. I mean, you got to tip your cap. You know, honestly, Alabama is like exactly what I thought they were, though. I don't come out of this with surprises about them. I think I come out with more surprises about Georgia. Happy that Georgia can run the ball. That's been a question for Georgia over the last couple of years. But now we got to figure out how to convert some of these yards into first downs and into points, because 21 points is never going to win this game. You know, we're old school Georgia fans, okay? We've been around for a long time. We remember we're talking about the Stafford whenever he beat Alabama in overtime years ago, you know. The old saying for us has always been, if Georgia wants to beat Alabama, you better score 30.
Yeah.
Remember? We used to always talk about it because in those Jake Fromm years and kind of in between, you know, then and now, there were so many games Georgia scored 24, 27, 20. Here we go again. It literally is the same as it ever was. And I don't know how Georgia gets over that hump. Is anybody's season over because of this? Georgia's isn't. They've lost 1 game.
Well, but Alabama had more to lose going into this game.
Certainly. There's no doubt.
They could not afford to lose this game because I don't see them running the table from here on out. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got to.
I don't think anybody comes out of this game thinking that Alabama's going undefeated the rest of the way.
I don't either.
And probably Georgia either, though.
I wouldn't be surprised if they lose to Vanderbilt next week.
Yeah. After an emotional victory like this,
100%.
and yeah, I mean it's.
I mean, Vandy doesn't have gift of surprise now since they beat them last year. They're going to be prepared for that game in a way that they weren't last year. But it's still a big game. You're probably pretty banged up after Georgia. We saw Quay Russaw go out with the targeting.
He's suspended in the first half for next week.
Yep. And then James Smith, James Smith went out for targeting. Quay Russaw was the one who got injured.
That's right.
We'll have to wait and see what his status is like. But you come out of these big games like this and you feel it. And so, not to get too far into a preview that we're going to do here in the next couple of days, but that's a big game. I think back against the wall for Alabama, they answered the bell. They proved that they are a playoff caliber team, I think, in this game. Georgia, I don't really feel like we learned anything that we didn't already know coming out of the Tennessee game. I had my doubts about the defensive line. I actually thought the DBs towards the end of the game played pretty well and actually bailed out the defensive line who wasn't getting a pass rush, wasn't getting any pressure on the quarterback.
I think maybe you could probably come away from that thinking the secondary probably grew up a little bit.
That's right.
So I think there is a consolation as far as some kind of silver lining as far as that goes, because I'm going to tell you that is how that goes in sports. My own son in here, I remember one game he went out there and pitched and struggled, but at the end of the game, I was like, oh, but it clicked. He learned something. Ever since that moment, he's been pitching instead of just throwing.
Right.
And maybe that is one of those moments for the Georgia secondary that I'm going to be honest with you. I'm certainly not impressed with their tackling ability. Now, that's something else maybe we talk about later this week or next time we do a Georgia breakdown, but it seems like back there in that secondary, there's a lot of specialists,
right? People
that are good at really specific things. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of well-roundedness in between the players. KJ Bolton, more of a run stopper. You know what I'm saying? Everett, more of a sideline kind of one-on-one specialist, but not going to come up. Now, he did lay the wood on somebody today, but he did the whole missile tackle thing.
Right.
Doesn't wrap up, and whatever. It worked. I mean, I can't do any better. Look at my fat ass, but I'm just, it seems like
he was trying to guard the football. And
it
really only works if that works to me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and he was a little bit late to be trying to jar.
I just hate the missile tackles. People going in and doing this and then bouncing off people and people taking off and running for 40 more yards. I just feel like I've seen that a million times. But maybe this is a moment where the Georgia secondary grows up a little bit. But, we were concerned about them in the first half. We were concerned about them in the first half of the Tennessee game and really throughout the Tennessee game. But honestly, I come out of this one more worried about the defensive line than I do any other group about the defense. Very disappointed, just to be honest with 100%. You. They had, towards the end of the game, they did have some moments, but I think it was more based upon having depth. And I didn't see Alabama rotating a bunch of offensive linemen.
Right.
I think they were tired.
Well, it looked to me
and they're huge. Alabama's offensive line is big as hell. Yeah. And they looked a little wore out to me. But
the only time Georgia and their defensive line was able to get pressure on Ty Simpson is when Alabama wanted them to and knew it was coming because they were redirecting the play to go to be flushed out. And when they wanted a clean pocket, they had it. And whenever they blocked and were getting beat, they pushed them to the outside, which opened up the middle for Ty Simpson to squirt up the middle a couple of times and get a first down. Just really, really good play from the offensive line. Alabama. I think
Ty Simpson read some press clippings about how Georgia doesn't have to worry about the quarterback running anymore this year, because if you don't know, Georgia's played a running quarterback against Alabama. You know what I'm saying? That they've defended against a running quarterback, dual threats for years now.
Yeah.
I mean, literally years now. And so I feel like there was some talk this week. And I don't know that to be the case. I'm just talking out my ass or talking out my beer can. Alabama wins again. We in our prediction show this past week, we predicted Alabama wins. We doubled back on the betting show. We kind of changed our minds. We should have just stuck with our gut, homie.
Yep. 100%.
Because and look, it leads kind of into the same thing with Penn State, brother. It's like something's up. They can't get over the hump. Yep. Georgia can't get over the hump with Alabama, even though at least Georgia can say that they beat Alabama in a national championship game. Penn State ain't won a Big Ten game. And now I'm not going to say they haven't won a big game. That's not fair. Penn State has won big games, but they were playoff games, and they were against SMU and they were against Boise State. And you're always going to have your naysayers, talking about those aren't big time, Power 4 teams and blah, blah, blah. So, say what you will about that. But Penn State and Oregon end up in overtime. And I see all you guys in the comment section. We'll get to you guys in just a second here. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Actually, before we get into Penn State and that, let's just kind of look at some. Why do y'all think Georgia's defense is having a problem getting to the quarterback? Well, you know what? We saw a nice breakdown of this at halftime of this game. And, every time we blitzed, at least in the first half, Georgia's linebackers that blitzed were coming from deep in the defense. They're not coming. Georgia doesn't have any guys that are going to be able to apply pressure from the defensive line.
On the outside of the defensive line and at the jack linebacker position, which is a linebacker that's playing down, they have power rushers. They don't have speed rushers in that position, at the defensive end position. They don't have a Joshua Josephs, right, like you saw at Tennessee. They're really missing that guy. They don't have a Michael Williams, who kind of did a little bit of both.
Yeah.
For Georgia, and so while I really like number 9, Chris Cole, I think he does a great job. He's got to work better about getting in position, getting closer to the line when the ball is snapped, so he can close in a little bit faster. But by the time the ball's snapped, he's still 2 or 3 yards off the line of scrimmage, trying to come in and make a play, and then going out really wide. We actually got out wide a lot whenever we were blitzing our linebackers and, contained very well. But in those situations, you kind of hope that they're trying to run it to the outside if you're playing that much of a containment.
Yeah.
And in those situations, they were actually passing, and we were a step late actually getting to the quarterback and closing. Left the middle of the field open, which is what he did. Again, that goes back to Ty Simpson making proper reads, being elite in this football game.
Well, yeah, and any time that we sent a blitz, he literally threw the ball right over their head, right behind them.
Yeah, that's what you look for.
Of course, you throw it right where the blitz comes from.
Right behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I don't think it was a fact of Georgia not trying to blitz. I think Ty Simpson got through his reads quickly. I thought he did a nice job moving his eyes, getting through his first, second, and third read very quickly. He's doing a better job at that at this point in his career. And again, any pressure that Georgia was able to create in this game was completely fabricated with the linebackers. And when you start bringing linebackers, when Georgia was winning championships, y'all, they were creating pressure, bringing 3 or 4.
Right.
That's why that defense was so damn good. They were never at a numbers disadvantage. This defense plays at a numbers disadvantage the whole freaking game. Because if you want to blitz. And when we bring 3, that quarterback just sits back there. He can make a fucking sandwich. And he can do whatever. Excuse my French, but, I mean, it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, and I can understand that with 3, but when you're bringing 4 and you're not getting any pressure, when you're bringing 5 and it's a linebacker coming in and it still ain't working, which there was a lot of that.
They just can't get there.
And then even on the running plays on some of them, in between the tackles, our defenders, our defensive line, are coming off of blocks, making tackles, and falling backwards 2 yards.
How many times did we see that today? I mean,
it's not what we're used to seeing with Georgia. They're usually stuffing at the line of scrimmage, pushing back. We saw a little bit of that later in the football game, but early on, it was a lot of reaching back and doing this. So that's one area that I think Georgia is not elite. And it's going to cost them a national championship this year. I don't see an answer. There's no fix. There's nobody behind the guys who are starting, who are hurting, or who are hurt right now, and we're waiting on them to come back from injury or anything like that. There's not an answer on the defensive line, and I just for anybody who thought Georgia might be a national championship contender this year, I don't see it happening.
Contender, I mean, Georgia can be in the conversation. Is there, I mean, what team have we seen this year that we're just like, well, nobody's beating them? I mean, I haven't seen one yet, and Georgia certainly isn't one of those. So, I mean, look, anything's possible. I mean, but
if there is one, though, and this is a good segue, I think it's Oregon. And I think that they just proved it going on the road in the toughest environment we've seen in college football yet with the whiteout.
Other than Georgia's game tonight.
At Happy Valley. Took care of business.
Yeah.
Really impressed. I mean,
yeah.
Dante Moore ends up with 3 touchdowns, 29 of 39, 248 yards. Had another 82 yards on the ground rushing. Rushed the ball 10 times.
Nobody really accounted for that, but
right.
Because remember, we were talking before the game started. We were looking at prop bets, and I believe that the over-under for his rushing yards was like 5.5 yards.
Yeah.
So anybody who hit the over absolutely just blew that out of the water. Yeah. Oregon ends up winning in double overtime, 30-24 over the Netherlands. Comes down to, putting the ball in Drew Aller's hands, and he throws an interception, and they're the first ones to crack under pressure. Look, and Drew Aller kind of continues to do what he's done in most of the big games that he's played. I would say barring the Oregon game this past season in the Big Ten championship. He's just, I don't know, man. I can't figure out, is it the chicken or the egg? Is it the wide receiver room or is it the quarterback? I don't know which it is. Is it the offensive coordinator? Is it the head coach? I don't know. But Penn State very clearly wants to play a certain style of football. I mean, and Oregon was their huckleberry today. They played that style of football with them for basically 3.5 quarters. And then Penn State actually turned the offense on. They're in the fourth quarter, able to, tie things up. I guess it was third and fourth quarter. But, I don't see where the playmakers on the outside are coming from for Penn State to win anything that is worth winning.
I really don't think that Drew Aller is the quarterback for this system.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of Penn State fans who are wondering if they kept the right quarterback because they're seeing what Bo Pribula is doing.
He's going to go play for Lane Kiffin next year at Florida.
What are you talking about?
Drew Aller.
Drew Aller. Yeah.
He's going to be at Florida next year with Lane Kiffin coaching him.
But I think
in the Heisman conversation,
Kotelnicki's a great offensive coordinator, but doesn't seem like he has the full playbook at his disposal. He seems a little handicapped with Drew Aller so far. Between him and not having the receivers, like you mentioned, the talent on the outside.
They don't have it.
Tyler Warren to bail you out.
Yeah,
who might be the best player in the NFL right now. So it's a big difference. It makes a huge difference. And then on top of that, you got to Oregon. You're going up against an Oregon team that did pretty well to stop the run against Penn State, and you took Allen and Singleton out of the football game, forced Drew Aller to make decisions and make throws down the field. He ends up 14-25 with 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's good for only 5.5 per attempt.
Yeah, and that just looks all too familiar with him facing, these big-time opponents. I mean, that looks like every game he's played against Ohio State ever.
Right.
I mean, that's what they look like. It not even that good usually. And he got to play 2 extra overtimes to score some of that. You know what I'm saying? So I do have to give Devontae Ross his flowers. We heard his name several times. Admittedly, our eyes were glued on the Georgia-Alabama game. Up until the fourth quarter, that game was boring.
Yeah.
Oregon and Penn State was boring up until the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, shit, here we go. The environment seemed boring. Now, Penn State's not one of those bowl stadiums. They're one of those that lays out flat.
Wide.
Yeah, real wide. And so I don't think the noise kind of gets stuck in there the same. But anyway, it just seemed like the atmosphere wasn't the same. But the game delivered at the end for sure. And that game's going to go a long way in telling us what's going to go on in the Big Ten this year. And here's what's going to go on. I mean, I think it's Oregon and Ohio State and kind of everybody else.
Yep. Oregon still has not lost a Big Ten matchup outside of the playoffs in the rematch against Ohio State, who went on to win the national championship last year. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And this
I think he'll take that.
Yeah, I think he kind of rubber stamped himself into the Big Ten right now.
I need to go look up all those videos about how will Oregon do in the Big Ten.
Yeah. And
go back and you get to be Captain Hindsight Asshole and be like, I think they'll do pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Captain Hindsight. Yeah, I Dante Moore just really delivered, man. You gotta tip your cap. The kid played really, really well. I think about 300 yards passing, wasn't it?
200 and it's like 239, I think it was.
Okay, a little less than I thought. I knew he'd got over. I thought it was the 300-yard mark. I guess it was the 200. But hey, Oregon set up really, really nicely now.
248, so about 50, and about 250. And I did mess up earlier in the show. He rushed 10 times for 35 yards in this game. Did Dante Moore. It was De'Aaron Hill who ended up with 82 on the ground for Oregon. Oregon ends up with 176 yards on the ground compared to Penn State, which was at 139. You take that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then passing, Penn State ended up with 137 yards, whereas, like I said, Oregon was almost at 250. That was really the difference in the game. Oregon's defense stepping up. To me, it was Tuioti coming off the edge, and then Uiagalelei played pretty nice as well.
Tuioti was just Aller's daddy today.
He's a freak. He's an absolute freak.
He's a bad dude. Yeah, there ain't no doubt about that. Well, Oregon's got a week off now, and then they're going to be facing off. They'll be hosting Indiana.
Okay.
So that's going to be pretty interesting. Indiana going on the road to Oregon. That'll be October 11th. So now Oregon, like I said, going into the bye week, I think perfect timing after what is and will be an emotional victory as they celebrate tonight out in Eugene, and deservingly so. The Dante Moore project has worked very well. And I have to say something, too. Barry Alexander looked good today.
Yeah.
Barry Alexander looked really good today, and you got to tip your cap to Dan Lanning because that guy's a knucklehead.
Right.
So it doesn't – as a Georgia fan, let me tell you something. I know what it's like to have knuckleheads on your team. That guy's a knucklehead. Yep. And nowadays they're knuckleheads with a bunch of money. You know what I'm saying? So for Dan Lanning to be able to bring him into the rehabilitation camp that is Oregon, maybe that's something that we start to see. We used to see Nick Saban bring in and rehab coaches at Alabama and then turn them loose, and they do really well. Lane Kiffin, maybe Oregon ends up being one of those places, especially for defensive players. And Dan Lanning, as forward-thinking as he is on defense, I just was impressed that you're able to get that out of Barry Alexander after I think he kind of just phoned it in the last couple of years, to be honest with you.
That, to me, is what a championship defensive line looks like.
Yeah.
Oregon is doing it. They're for real, stunning up front, but we know it's mostly about the personnel.
Sure.
Oregon's got the personnel to do it. They're very fast up front. Very fast.
Barry Alexander is supposed to be at Georgia. He's supposed to be at Georgia right now and be a top 10 draft pick, coming into the draft this year. But he wasn't mature enough to be at Georgia when he was, I don't think. And, needed the penthouse on the hill in Southern Cal and, needed to go live that lifestyle and not play well for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden he's back and doing well for Oregon. Oregon's got to be the national championship.
Comment from Pigpen saying emergency in Fayetteville.
Oh, Pig Suey, holy shit.
Shout out for help. We can talk about this game a little bit. We saw this in the noon slot.
Somebody fire up that jukebox.
Yeah, right.
Fuck.
It's rough.
Actually, somebody get that dead body off the jukebox because, brother, there was some give up going on. 100%. And we talked about this earlier today, Pigpen. Look, Pittman just needs to go ahead and come on back to Georgia, come coach the offensive line.
Yeah, 100%.
Stop it with this. I'm sure you'll get a nice paycheck. Stop it with this. Just come on back, dude. Come on back. And I'm joking around. I would love to have him back as offensive line coach,
he
but
may step down and be an offensive line coach at Arkansas. I think that's more realistic. Somebody else comes in, hey, we'll let you retire out of here. Come coach our O-line.
Yeah.
Bring in.
Just go out.
Let Petrino take over, I guess. I don't know.
Holy shit.
What they do.
Holy shit.
Is it any different then?
Then he comes in riding his motorcycle to the first game.
I don't know.
Anyway, look, Pigpen, it is an emergency, and it needs to be handled, I guess, as quickly as possible. This day in college football, I think it's the day of just waiting around until a good time comes. I think if you know you want to get rid of your coach, you just need to go ahead and do it.
And it's not because Arkansas lost this game. They were favored to lose. They were picked to lose. We picked them to lose, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. It's how they lost. I mean,
at the end of the half,
and it's at home. At
the end of the first half, when they gave up that run, there were business decisions being made by some of those defensive players, and it was, I'm not getting in the way. 100%. And there's absolutely no way on earth, I don't care how bad your defense is, that Notre Dame should be scoring 42 on you in the first half. And they're not that offense, okay? I know, again, we talked about it. We knew they were going to lose, more than likely. But to that effect, I mean, it should have been a shootout.
Right.
I mean, that's what we were thinking, a shootout.
I was expecting Arkansas to put up 30 at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Against a Notre Dame defense that's been shoddy. I mean, let's be real. They just gave up 41 to Texas A&M.
Well, and another thing I want to talk about, too, with Arkansas, you talk about Petrino. It's not like the offense has been scoring a bunch of points. They get a bunch of yards. They've been doing that a couple of years. It was happening last year. Lots of yards, lots of yards, lots of yards. They get in the red zone, they stall out. It's almost like if they don't hit an explosive play and score off of it, they have trouble scoring. Yeah. So in Georgia's the same way. Georgia's the same freaking way right now. So, I mean, look, a red zone scoring is a lot easier to talk about than it is to go out and execute, obviously. But yeah, man, Pigpen, there's a big problem. Now, just kind of talking about that game though, CJ Carr was a guy that I was high on going into the season. Dude, he's going to be really good.
Oh yeah.
CJ Carr for Notre Dame, y'all watch. That guy's going to be really, really freaking good.
354 yards, 22 of 30 on the day. That's good for 11.8 per attempt, and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Yeah,
that's getting it done. 98.1 QBR. You can't do much better, except Jordan Faison ended up doing a little bit better. He was 1 for 1 with a 40-yard pass. We saw that wide receiver pass there. Ended up with 100 QBR. Then Kenny Minchie comes in mop-up duty. He goes 1 of 1 for 37 yards, 99.5 QBR. So, the quarterback room was the winner here for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Between the Numbers Sports says we got to stop hyping Notre Dame up. I'm not hyping them up. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I was higher on them going into the season than I should have been, but I was certainly not hyping them up.
No,
we weren't even online enough to hype them up.
Well,
I'll just be honest with you. So
yeah, and then here recently, going into this game against Arkansas, I was saying they shouldn't, especially now we saw USC lose to Indiana. Well, that was the next biggest game that Notre Dame has to circle on their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
USC's not going to be ranked by the time they play.
Yeah.
So
USC loses to Illinois today.
It doesn't look to me like Notre Dame is going to have the resume at 10-2 to win or to get into the college football playoff. I don't think.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. All right, let's keep it moving here. We got another SEC matchup. There were some big SEC matchups this week, about 3 real big ones, or more, if depending on who you're a fan of. But Chambliss has 385 yards from scrimmage as Ole Miss defeats LSU 24-19. Lane Kiffin promised that Ole Miss would cover the spread this week, and he promised that the over would hit. He was halfway correct, which is better than what I can say betting this week. Yep. So I have to tip my cap to the man. What's bad is the only advice I took from him was the over, and that's what didn't hit. So Lane, you let me down, damn it. But Ole Miss comes through and ends up winning 24-19, 14 points in the second quarter. Turned out to be an insurmountable amount of points there for LSU. The offense is just not good. There's
Who thought we would be saying that about LSU?
I know. Well, I mean, and it's one of them situations where LSU has got to feel like the fisherman in the boat that sticks his finger in one hole and then all of a sudden water's coming in from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly should have replaced Joe Sloan in the offseason, and Nuss is struggling. Yeah, I mean, there's Nuss has got a problem fitting balls where they don't need to go. And there's one thing about being a gunslinger and taking chances and throwing 50-50 balls, because, I mean, you have a good enough wide receiver core that some of those are probably 55-45 balls, really. You know, you got to play the percentages. But, dude, he's trying to fit these things in where it's just impossible.
He hasn't – I said it earlier. He has not been the same since the Texas A&M game of last year, which he lost in that game, making poor decisions, trying to fit the ball down the field and turning the ball over. It looks a lot the same. And going to your point between the numbers, I'm not a huge fan of Joe Sloan. I don't know why he gets so much praise and hype. I haven't seen it yet. And I know he's a young offensive coordinator, but I don't think that LSU is necessarily a place you need to be cutting your teeth.
Yeah, absolutely. LSU's defense, I have to say, I had some questions going into this week, and it had nothing to do with LSU. LSU's looked great on defense this year. They've looked great. There's zero doubt about that. Okay, Blake Baker is doing his damn thing. That guy's gonna be a head coach somewhere eventually. That's going to happen. Y'all just go ahead and mark it down. But I had questions coming in about the secondary. I was like, well, I didn't feel like they were tested because the big teams that LSU was hanging their hat on the victories of were Florida, no offense, right? Clemson, no offense, right? So I was still holding out thinking, okay, this could still possibly be a fluke. I knew the defensive line was better. I knew the linebacker core for LSU is good. I do know that. But the secondary, I just didn't know yet. And I'm not sitting here to tell you today that they're the best in the SEC, but this defense is real.
I mean, you held Ole Miss to 24 points. I think that's a really good offense.
I think it is a good offense. Yeah. I think it certainly is a good offense. Now, they had a lot of yards, didn't convert them all into points, but, I mean, dude, that's the sign of a good defense, right? Bend, don't break. You know, look, any type of defense, the performing at this level is well received by the LSU fan base after what they went through the last couple of years. I mean, it cost LSU probably a national championship, to be honest with you, the year that Jalen Daniels was there.
Yeah.
I mean, if they have a
top 25 defense,
I'm almost going to say top 35 defense, they probably win something or are in the hunt, but it was the defense holding them back, and now it's flip-flopped on them, and it's really hard to put your finger on, man. And don't you dare ask Brian Kelly about it. You know, don't you dare ask him about it. He'll jump all over your ass. But
again, not running the football
again. But look, I ain't got nothing against Brian Kelly. I really don't. You know, he's not my. You know, he doesn't like remind me of any of my family members or anything. He's not my type of dude. But that Northeast style. I'm a Southern gentleman, but man, you know, you just got to scratch your head and wonder, like, what is the deal, man? I like Caden Durham. They still don't show a propensity to be able to run the ball. Was he? Yeah. Well, that hurts because he's the only option, right?
They ended up with 57 yards on the ground in this game.
Well, that's predictable. It's that's super predictable, and I guess that's kind of where we're at with this offense. It seems very, very predictable.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't seem like there's any other separate gear. There's no tricks up the sleeve. And with that wide receiver core, it doesn't make. I mean, what a waste. You know, not a waste because LSU's not out of anything. You know, I don't want to. Yeah. This is the overreaction show. So, and I have been drinking beers. So, cheers to y'all. That these only make me overreact more. But You
9
know,
different pass catchers that LSU had. I mean, they got guys.
they got dudes in the wide receiver room. There is no doubt about it. And now they've got dudes on the defense, and we haven't been able to say that, but it just can't. They can't seem to figure it out.
Yep. Can't get it all on the same page.
Ole Miss comes through. All right, let's talk about. Can we talk about Florida State and Virginia? Y'all want to talk about that one? Because that was a really fun game to watch. Y'all let me know in the comment section if y'all were able to get eyes on that on Friday. Hey, cheers to you between the numbers. I appreciate you, man. He said Harlem Berry will be good, and Juju Johnson is explosive too. He said Caden Durham has an ankle injury.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, and he did snap at that reporter too. And what was funny was the reporter asked him about the run game, and it wasn't what he asked him. He said he was mad about when he asked it. He's like, "We just won," and it was like, "Well, okay, so tomorrow, basically like, can I ask you tomorrow?" Awesome games. The fans stamping the players is crazy.
Let's talk about the Virginia game,
dude. All right, yes, let's get into Florida State and Virginia. All right, so Tony Elliott got all the fans riled up. Okay, they're fired up for this big time matchup. Virginia doesn't have a history of these big time top 10 matchups. I mean, they just really, really don't. So the house is packed. Virginia comes out hot. Florida State comes out dribbling down the back of their leg. They're fumbling the ball. No, fumbling the ball.
Well, it was
turnovers.
Early though, it was. I mean, both teams were just.
Well, every time. Well, Virginia goes up 14-0, and then Florida State comes roaring back on the back of Deuce Robinson, who looked amazing. As a Georgia fan, I was literally telling my son, like, he was supposed to be at Georgia.
Yeah.
Like, I still feel like he should be and should have been at Georgia. He's a beast, dude. He is a beast. Like 6'6", 225 pounds, ball skills. Runs.
Supposed to be a tight end.
He's supposed to be a tight end, but
really filled out. So.
They called him a receiver on TV. I mean, he looks like it because he's at 6'6", 225. That's a thin frame, really.
And he's probably going to play baseball at the next level, which is what's surprising. He's such a good football.
Probably going to be a draft pick in major leagues.
Yeah. Which is why he's at Florida State playing baseball.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, that makes sense. But he really comes through and helps Tommy Castellanos get the team back in this game. And it was just back and forth. I mean, just what an outstanding game. That running back for Virginia, what's his name?
Jamari Taylor.
Is it what's his name? Number 3. Holy shit, dude. That guy right there is an animal, bro. He was
7 carries in that game.
Bro.
99 yards.
Yeah, well, what was funny was before the game, they asked the coaches, the guys that do the call on the game, they were like, I guess he was limited for some reason, maybe some type of injury. They were like, yeah, we're going to try to just keep him to like 10 or 15. Dude, he was killing people. It was very impressive. Florida State is not maybe it was just this game, but they did not tackle well in this game. That was a big part of the problem here. They did not tackle well, did not wrap up. Chandler Morris for Virginia ends up hurting his hand in this game. And at one point on a touchdown drive that Virginia had right after he hurt his hand, out of 9 plays, they ran the ball 8 times in a row. He had thrown and hit the helmet. It looked like this hurts. Anything around this thumb, man. I've had problems with my thumbs, and it hurts bad. Anyway, they ran the ball 8 times in a row. Everybody in the stadium knew what was coming, and Florida State couldn't do a damn thing about it, dude. And that is what cost them this game. Yeah. It's not the offense.
Their defense they could not stop Virginia at all.
Well, but everybody talked about it going into this game thinking, well, Florida State, I think their defense is decent, blah, blah, blah. That wasn't a good showing. Now, we have heard about Virginia and about how their offense, I mean, they have an offensive-minded head coach. If y'all don't know, Tony Elliott, the head coach of Virginia, was the offensive coordinator at Clemson when they were winning national championships. So, that's kind of how those trees blossom, right? And here Clemson is struggling. Virginia's in a lot better shape this year than
wishing they had Tony Elliott
wishing they
Brent
had.
Venables back.
Oh man, they need Tony Elliott and Brent Venables back like now. They would take a time machine if they could to go back and keep them around. But Virginia, I thought really showed up and answered the bell, man. Really fought like a prize fight, just jabbing people. Jay Ham, dude on the right has the same voice as me. Laugh my ass off. Random but true. Who's on the right for him?
I guess I am.
That guy's on the right? Because that's on my left.
Virginia could quietly play him. Oh, Virginia quarterback could quietly play himself into a high draft position.
Chandler Morris.
Yeah, I mean, he comes from a coaching background. His dad,
I heard that.
Why am I blanking on his name?
Is it Chad? It's not Chad.
Morris.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it's Chad.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, really, popular offensive coordinator. And
he had a moment.
Yeah, heck of a coach. But going to your
not a good head coach, really good offensive coach though.
Really good offensive coach. 100%. Yeah.
I didn't need to say that. Why'd I say that?
But I mean, how many quarterbacks are out there in college football right now whose dad was revered at the time as one of the top 5 offensive coordinators in his heyday? You know what I mean? He probably knows ball. Like, he probably knows ball a pretty good bit. Maybe not the most athletic guy, but missed some throws. He did miss some throws in that game pretty badly. But yeah, I could see him playing himself on a roster at some point.
I'm not sure. I'll be honest with you. I don't know the Cavaliers' schedule. I don't know who they got next. I don't know if Chandler Morris, is hurt long term with that. I'm interested to hear. I don't get a bunch of Virginia news, and I don't follow.
I'll rattle it off for you here. But they got Louisville, Washington State, North Carolina, Cal, Wake Forest.
Not bad.
Duke, and then Virginia Tech.
Bad.
Yeah, like
they only got about 3.
Schedule's very winnable.
Only about 3 more like super tough games, like super tough for them.
Yeah,
them,
Louisville, I think Duke and then Wake Forest. They held pretty close to Georgia Tech today, but I'm not sure about them.
Yeah. All right, see you later between the numbers. You have a good one, man. Yeah, well, they hung in there with Georgia Tech today. And, I actually heard 2 different people call into shows that I listen to, that I frequent, and they were betting on Wake Forest this weekend. And one of the principles that I heard one of these people betting by was the fact that Georgia Tech ain't going to beat nobody by 13.5. And that does make sense because their style is not – they want to suck the life out of the game after they get a lead. That's what they want to do, and
make it really interesting at the end.
Make it super interesting at the end, just like they did tonight.
Let's get some eyes on this game over here.
Yeah.
Let's hold up the 3:30 game and let's keep it going over here, because that's exactly what happened with Auburn and Texas A&M. I couldn't get over to that game because Georgia Tech was holding them up. But
they end up winning 30-29. But it was the other person that was betting on Wake Forest that I saw this week that had called in, they were saying that Wake Forest genuinely just has a decent squad. And I had not heard that this year. I don't keep up with the Demon Deacons.
Right.
You let me know if you do in the comment section. I know you don't.
There was a time a couple years ago, they had a new coach come in, and I forget who it was. It was kind of a flash in the pan.
We thought. We thought maybe it was going to be something.
Yep.
I haven't seen them be good at really football in a long time. All right, what other games we got to talk about? We got
Tennessee, Mississippi State.
Well, let's do Texas A&M,
Auburn.
Texas A&M and Auburn real quick, because that one's honestly not going to take long. A defensive slugfest. There wasn't much, dude. This was the most boring game of the day.
Yeah,
100%. If you're not an Auburn or a Texas A&M fan, I don't know how the hell you kept your eyes on that thing the whole time. That was boring as shit.
Last week, the Oklahoma-Auburn game was kind of similar.
It was very similar. I thought that shit was boring. Yeah. Look, okay, Auburn's defense is better than I thought they were. I have a buddy. We have a buddy of ours that is an Auburn fan, and he told me the defense was going to be good this year. And I don't know why. I just didn't really buy into it. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
But they're just like one of the – I mean, think of all these teams in the SEC right now. Florida, really good defense, no offense.
Right.
LSU seems like a really good defense, not much offense, right? And I think you've got kind of a similar situation with Auburn here. And what's crazy about all three of those teams is the fact that all three of those teams have playmakers on the outside.
Right.
Not all of them have run games, but all of them have playmakers on the outside, like that are coveted and that people would want on their team, that would start on other teams. Like, it's really wild what's going on. I mean, I wonder if maybe it clicks later on in the season. You know, you just have to wonder. But as a bettor, you can't ride that.
No.
I mean, you can't ride that train. That's a trail of destruction, dude.
What you need to win if you've got a defense like that is a run game. Oklahoma has a pretty good running game. That's kind of why. That's kind of why there's
with Mateer.
Exactly.
With Mateer.
Exactly.
They don't have him right now.
Auburn in this game, even with Jackson Arnold using his legs, running 15 times, only ended up with 11 yards.
Ooh.
They're taking out their sacks and things as well. But
Yikes.
52 yards on the day for the Auburn team rushing the football.
What about that running back? They got one good running back. Starts with a C. His last name? Cobb. Jeremiah Cobb.
Yeah.
What did he do?
6 carries.
See, 4.7.
28 yards. And he led the team with 28 yards.
That sounds like somebody gave up on the run, though. You know, 4.7?
Yeah.
That's not
and
that
they were
bad.
never down that much to be giving up on the run, ever.
Yeah, how
Even
many
at the
times
end,
they rushed the ball?
by 6.
How many times they rushed the ball?
24 carries. And a lot of those are Jackson Arnold taking a sack.
See, that's not nearly enough. How many times they throw it?
Texas A&M ended up with 5 sacks in this game, by the way. Threw the ball 18 times.
Where are all their offensive plays?
22 plays on offense that they ran. That just goes to show like how messy.
What, they have 5 first downs?
That's terrible. Meanwhile, Texas A&M had 47 rushes. They rushed the ball more times than Auburn had a total
plays.
And then also threw the ball 15 times. Only had to throw the ball 15 times.
So maybe I need to pull it up.
207 yards on the ground for Texas A&M.
So this is one of those games that wasn't really as close as the scoreboard depicted.
100%.
That's kind of what that tells me about that game. I could not keep my eyes on that game. If I would have tried to watch that game, I would have fell asleep.
Well, every time we saw, like there was a commercial on whatever it was we were watching. We go to the Auburn Texas A&M game, which we were trying to watch because it was.
There was just other shit going on.
I was really interested in this. I thought Auburn maybe would show up a little bit more than they did, but I mean, every time we turned it on, Auburn was getting a penalty right after a big play or on third down, and it was just like constantly there behind the sticks.
It was like a joke today. It was like the little things. We kept saying the little things, and it was like a running joke for the day. Yeah. But I mean, really,
their offense is anemic.
How is that possible with an offensive minded head coach like that?
Right. Well, I can guarantee you some people are going to be calling for Deuce Knight coming this week. I think that's kind of the next step before they get rid of the head coach and play calling duties. Maybe that's another step down the road. You hand over those duties to an offensive coordinator. But Jackson Arnold doesn't look that bad. That's kind of the other question is like I don't see him playing like I saw Peyton Thorne playing last year, where I'm like, yeah, this guy's obviously not going to work. I don't really have an answer as to why it doesn't work. For Auburn, some of the best skill players on the offensive side of the football, some of the best receivers, in the SEC.
They got some good ones, guys that any team would like to have. They have guys that any team would love to have, except at quarterback. And so I'm left to, and maybe offensive line, and Jackson Arnold hasn't played on a college football team that has a good offensive line. So I'm still yet, he's going to be the backup at Ole Miss next year.
Probably.
So and Lane Kiffin's going to put him on the map.
Yep.
Y'all wait and see. This kind of this crazy college football world we live in, man. You just never freaking know. I'm on a Lane Kiffin kick right now. But anyway, Virginia ends up winning in double overtime against Florida State. We had talked about that one, 46-38. Big shakeup there in the top of the ACC. A lot of people already had Georgia Tech and Florida State or Miami, whichever won that game, penciled in. By the way, guys, Florida State drops this game, now has to play Miami. Isn't it Miami this next week?
Yep.
So was that a look-ahead spot maybe? I don't know what happened there. Again,
that's typical ACC type stuff.
That was, well, and it's typical Friday night game type shit too. Like,
I guess that's
these Friday night games. Speaking of which, let's go to another Friday night game. TCU, Arizona State. I thought this game was interesting as hell. Maybe it's because I bet on it. But I had watched TCU earlier this year, and I'm going to tell y'all right now, my thoughts on TCU are confirmed even in this loss. TCU is a decent ball club. Yeah. As far as Big 12 clubs go, they can beat anybody in the Big 12 any day. And I guess you can kind of just say that about Arizona State as well. Even though they don't seem as flashy, they don't seem like they're as good as last year. I know they're not as good as last year, but they're figuring out ways to win. And we watched TCU do that a few years ago, all the way to the national championship game where they were crushed like a tin can. But Arizona State wins this one 27-24 on another last-second field goal. This is the second week in a row that it's happened. Sam Leavitt figures out a way to get his team rallied up, and Kenny Dillingham keeps the winning alive. I believe they've won 8. I believe they won 8 Big 12 games in a row or something like that. They're on a roll.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just flat out on a roll. And 4-1 for the season, give TCU their first loss. So probably going to see Arizona State and TCU flip-flop in the rankings this week, as TCU was right around that 24-25 mark for most rankings. Probably going to see Arizona State slide back in there.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't get eyes on this game, but just kind of looking at it, I mean, TCU couldn't find a running game. You know, they end up getting completely outrushed in this one. They ended up with 12 yards rushing on the day. Josh Hubert's going backwards with negative 38 yards. In comparison, Arizona State ended up with 209. And this is that's a big difference. And might be another example of a case where the game wasn't as close as it really looked like at the end of the game. Arizona State just kind of out-physical them.
I tell you, Arizona State and Iowa State have something in common. They can stop the run. It seems like they both always just have dudes in the middle. Like, at least recently. Mm-hmm. Like, not long-term. They've always 50 – no, I'm saying the last 2-3 years, they've had dudes in the middle. They can stop the run. And it makes them a little bit more unique in the Big 12. So I'm interested to see how that plays in. But the Big 12 is the most competitive conference in America. I don't think there's any doubt about that at this point. I think SEC is very competitive as well this year. But as far as just having sheer number of teams that have a possibility of winning a conference championship, the Big 12 is right up there, and Arizona State is one step closer to that as they're 4-1 with a 27-24 victory over TCU. We talked about Georgia Tech kind of briefly there for a minute. I'm not really looking to go into that game, and there's no nerds watching this. So, you know.
Georgia Tech and Wake Forest.
Yeah, none of the nerds are watching. So,
for those who don't know, they end up winning in overtime by 1 point.
Yep.
I didn't get to catch the end of the game because at that point I had moved on to the 3:30 slot. They just took too long to score. So they were about the only good noon game on after Arkansas was out of the race.
That's what they get for playing with their food, man.
Yeah.
Now I watch.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can keep them moving.
Illinois scores 34, most points ever scored against USC is what I saw as a team. 34-32, they end up winning this thing. So everybody that was talking about USC doing this or doing that, how about no?
Still bad.
Still bad. Okay. See ya. Vanderbilt, 55-35 over Utah State. Vanderbilt's going to square off with Alabama next. This game was a little too interesting. to start. 35 points given up to Utah State is horrendous because I think they're really bad.
Yeah, they're very bad.
I'm no like sub, Power 4 conference like expert, but I've heard through the grapevine they're terrible.
Yeah.
And I knew some people that were betting on this game. We don't need to go any further into that, but Diego Pavia, I think, threw 5 touchdowns. So anybody on Pavia watch, he's still doing the damn thing. Ohio State takes out Washington 24-6. Look, in that situation, that doesn't sound flashy. It doesn't sound great for people that don't actually pay attention to what's going on and, some of the depths of these conferences. Washington is in the depths of the Big Ten because A, they're new there, and B, they were terrible last year. But that's not this Washington team. They have Coach Jed Fish, who I've got a ton of respect for. I think he's a really good football coach, and I think he's going to have Washington going in the right direction. I think he already does. But Ohio State's one of the best teams in the country.
Yep.
And there's just no way of getting around that.
Giving up only 6 points against the Huskies on the road, traveling completely across the country.
Yeah.
That to me is what's
Washington.
So
Washington had not lost at home in a long time.
Yeah.
Did you?
22 games.
It was a long time. It was one of the longest.
Second longest. Well, we had 2.
The top 2 longest got snapped.
That's right.
This weekend, Georgia was 33.
Yep.
That snapped by Alabama. Georgia had won 33 in a row at home, and Washington had won 22 in a row at home, and that snapped as well. So kudos to Ohio State, man. I mean, the defense we knew it was the real deal. Julian Sayin played real well today, and honestly was the catalyst for a comfortable victory. And by the way, a victory that exceeded the spread by a lot. Yeah. That was actually a blowout. 24-6, as far as Vegas is concerned, was a blowout this weekend because they were predicting, 8.5 at the most 10?
Yeah, I think I got it at 8.5, and it was actually at 7.5 before.
Yeah.
I put a bet at 8.5. So yeah, pretty convincing win there. Julian Sayin ends up 22 of 28, just an absolute tactician. 208 yards only, but 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Ends up with a QBR of 88.9. Just another efficient day for the young quarterback playing in his first year. He's a true sophomore. Looks very poised. Looks very, very poised. And I'm anxious to see what he turns into at the end of the year. We saw it last year with Ryan Day and Ohio State. He knew this was going to be a marathon, not a sprint. Right?
Yeah.
So let's get the best out of our team so that at the end of the year, when we hit the playoffs, we're the best team in the country. Are we going to see the same thing this year? Because I happen to think that they are holding out a little bit with Julian Sayin and letting him kind of get the offense under his feet.
Yeah.
Getting ready for, Penn State, Michigan, some of these bigger matchups they've got down the road for sure, seeing what they've got there. And by the time the end of the season comes around, they'll be in full swing, and they really look like the number 1 team in the country to me right now. To me, it's them and Oregon at the moment.
Yeah, I just don't see any question in that at all at this point. It's those 2 and then everybody else kind of right this second. Now, are they head and shoulders above everybody? I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. Penn State almost beat Oregon today.
Yeah, could have very easily. I mean, Georgia could have won today, and you could have been saying that about Georgia. Yeah. If they would have kicked that field goal and then won it in overtime, you would have been saying Georgia might be the best team in the country. You might have been. I mean, probably would have been ranked number 1.
Yeah,
honestly.
We
don't even need to freaking. Georgia is not number 1, so don't take that the wrong way.
But come playoff time, January, we're gonna have some really good games, I think.
Oh man,
and it's gonna be anybody's trophy. I think realistically, I think there will be probably 8 to 10 teams that can really realistically win it.
Well, a team that's actually still in that conversation as well, Tennessee, going on the road, more cowbell. 41-34, Tennessee ends up winning this thing over Mississippi State in overtime. Joey Aguilar, 24 of 40, 335 yards, threw a couple interceptions. Kind of a rough day for Joey. Not great. And but one thing that was really kind of a saving grace for Tennessee was, at least later in the game, was ability to run the football. a little bit, 131 yards rushing. Tennessee ain't been that great at running the ball this year.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a breath of fresh air, and honestly was probably the reason Tennessee was able to win this thing.
Yeah.
But look, you got to tip your cap to Mississippi State and Jeff Levy and what they're doing. I mean, to go out there and compete with what we consider to be at least a decent, if not better than decent, Tennessee team. Mississippi State is a team to be reckoned with, and if you sleep on Mississippi State, especially whenever you head into cowbell country, hey, if it wasn't bow season this weekend, they might have won.
Might have been able to get it done. But I think
inside joke there.
If you're a Bulldogs fan for State, you got to feel pretty good about being competitive in these big games.
Yeah.
You beat Arizona State, team we talked about earlier in the season, and now you're hanging in there with a pretty tough Tennessee team. Can they play upset against Georgia down the road? I mean, there's realistically, they're a team now that I feel like can start upsetting some folks, similar to Vanderbilt. In year, I think it was year 2 or 3 last year under Clark Lee, started really making some strides and upsetting some folks. Mississippi State might be headed down that same track. And what's really surprising to me with Mississippi State, I thought that they were going to kind of be this sort of Mike Leach offense again, under Jeff Levy and giving up a bunch of points on defense. Well, it's actually the defense that's been stepping up and making some big plays. Kept them in this one. I know 41 points is a lot to give up. This was an overtime game.
Yeah.
But going up against the Tennessee defense, it's not that bad. You gave up 34 in regulation, put yourself in a position to win the football game, and just came up short at home.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, did a decent job of keeping the point total down, even though the yardage was there. Mike Matthews and Chris Brazel absolutely went off. About 225 yards they were responsible for. But out of all those yards, you only give up 1 touchdown between the two of them. Yeah. And so that kind of goes to
trying to get the ball down to him downfield. You gave up 2 picks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we said it after the second pick. Tennessee and their offense is going to live and die by the long ball. It's going to come back to bite them at some point this season against somebody.
You can't win every 50-50 ball. Right. That's why they're 50-50 balls. Now, with Chris Brazel and Mike I mean, these guys look really good right now. Yeah. Are they going to win more than they lose? Probably slightly. But when they lose, and you turn the ball over, that's obviously very detrimental to your football team when you're playing teams that are talent equipped to hang with you. And I got to give a shout out to Arian Carter too. 17 tackles today. That's Arian Carter is going to be a good NFL player. He's legit. Tennessee gets the win here, and I have to say, a good win, a really good win. I had a little something on Mississippi State on the money line this week, and was feeling good about it for a long time in this game. But Tennessee is able to get it done and knocks Mississippi State from the ranks of the unbeatens. Somehow we're unbeaten and unranked going into this week. So wouldn't it be funny if they were unbeaten, 4-0, unranked, and then they barely lose this game to Tennessee, and then they're ranked? Now they're ranked. It makes sense, right?
Fucking quality loss.
Bizarro world we live in. Iowa State spanks Arizona 39-14. I honestly did not see that one coming. I did not think Iowa State would be spanking Arizona like that, so that was a big surprise to me. Mizzou takes care of business against UMass. That's just news, not very exciting news. Halftime right now, let's see, Colorado was up 14-10 on BYU. Is it
21-17 now with
in the
7
third
seconds left in the third?
I think BYU's got a chance to be a decent team this year, but maybe I'm
up, by the way, 21-17.
Yeah, Colorado up 21-17. I thought BYU might be decent this year, but I don't know, man. If they're fooling around with Colorado, then I'm not quite sure about that. All right, man. I think that's about all the games. Y'all got anything there in the comment section? I appreciate all y'all coming and hanging out with us. If you would, hit the like button real quick before you head out of here. We're going to be right back on at the very early part of this week, and we're going to be breaking down games that we've got coming up here in week 6, right? Yes, this is week 5 we're reacting to. Man, that's hard to believe. It was a great week. My Dogs lost. It is what it is. They lost fair and square. I will say this. I'd be damned if they didn't miss some holding calls in that game.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. No,
I think there was one holding call in the game, and it was Georgia's offensive line that got called for it. I dare you to try to find a game, go watch film, and find a game with one hold. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen.
No.
They were letting them play it out, and so maybe Georgia got away with just as many as Alabama did. I don't know, but that was a tough game, man. Yep. That was a tough pill to swallow. Yep. Kick the field goal, Kirby. Kick the field goal. Jeez. Thank y'all so much for watching. I certainly do appreciate it. That was a lot of fun this week, even though my Dogs took a loss. And you know what? I have to say too, it doesn't hurt as much now that we've won a couple. And now these days it's kind of like, hey, we just weren't good enough.
You got to be humbled every now and then.
Yeah, we just weren't good enough this time. Whereas about 3 years ago, I'd be ready to punch somebody in the nose because that was super frustrating. But hey, caps off to Alabama. Congratulations on a big win. They'll be flying up in the rankings this week after going into that atmosphere. We'll see y'all at the first part of the week. We've got predictions early on this week. We've got a top 25 poll that we've got to drop. We've got a betting show on Thursday. And then we'll be right back here next weekend to react to it all with you again. Thank y'all so much for watching. Everybody have a good night.
Thanks. Y'all take care.